Welcome to the Operations Science Podcast, where the art and science of operational excellence come to life through captivating stories of triumph, challenge, and transformation from the front lines of industry. Our distinguished guests, from manufacturing pioneers and medical device innovators to aerospace visionaries, diagnostic lab leaders, and major capital project leaders, unveil the hidden patterns and powerful insights that drive exceptional results in the complex world of operations. Join us on this journey of discovery as we explore the brilliant minds behind the systems that make our world work and uncover the leadership secrets that could revolutionize your approach to operations forever. Here is your host, Ed Pound.
Welcome, everyone, to the Operations Science Podcast. Today, our guest brings over 2 decades of supply chain and operations leadership experience, and is currently helping build Coloplast's new Greenfield manufacturing site in Portugal. Coloplast, as many listeners may know, is a global leader in medical devices, providing essential products like catheters and other healthcare solutions to hospitals, governments, and patients around the world. Our guest has been at the heart of setting up new operations, balancing global supply chains, and navigating challenges from demand forecasting to regulatory complexity. As Coloplast expands, he is managing the startup of a plant that will ultimately produce over 600 finished SKUs, or stock keeping units, which will be shipped worldwide. That kind of challenge requires not only operational rigor, but also a vision on how to design processes and systems from the ground up. Please join me in welcoming to the podcast, Santiago Camacho. Hey, Santiago, how are you today?
Hi, Ed. I'm doing really well. Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
Looking forward to the conversation. So let's jump right in. So what do you see as some of the major challenges you face in managing supply chains today?
I think I will give you an answer. The one that is a sexy answer and one that is not so much. The sexy answer, which relates to AI. I think one of the challenges that we will face, not only on supply chain field, but also in every other field, is how do we embed the technology into our operations day to day. But even a bit further, how do we make the switch with people that are already on the team that needs to take in the technology and make it part of the work, because we all come with different backgrounds and experiences, and I think that's going to be a challenge to level out people so that we can make the best of it. So I think that's one challenge that I can see in supply chains. I can see, of course, many benefits from AI, and the other one I think is you can see the news every day. Things are changing in the world, let's say, from a supply chain point of view as well, with some risks, and I think is the same old as being able to be ready for any of those major changes that can happen. I think that's key. How do you do some scenario planning and be sure that you can actually tackle some of those challenges ahead, at least be prepared as much as you can. So I think that those would be my 2 points.
Yeah, definitely. But those are both, I think, top of mind for most people in supply chain these days. I was having a conversation recently about AI. I want to get your opinion of it. One of the things with AI is, people who are entry level and they're doing things that don't require much experience because they don't have much experience, or this person was saying that new entrants to the job market are kind of being shut out because AI is doing all the easy stuff basically that they used to do. And so it becomes a bit of a problem because they can't get experience if they don't get experience. How do you see that, or do you see that with any of the AI implications or implementations that you've been working with or looking at?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think we cannot assume that the jobs will be the same as they are today, right? So they will evolve, and what you're mentioning, these, let's say, transactional tasks, let's say creating so let's put it on marketing campaigns, right? Making a design that can be done in 2 seconds versus some hours of that is not gonna, we cannot get rid of that, of course. So I think it's more about how do we will switch the task for people on how to, how to interpret what is AI been performing, right? Maybe one example in supply chain, it's when you are doing planning, and let's say you need to do a scenario for, let's say, changing a new line that will have many implications, variables, let's say different capacity, different scrap levels, and so on. Is how do you do the simulation for those? And I think you could actually get a lot of benefit from using AI that in, and you will need people that is able to interpret that and make a decision. So I think in let's say the job market of tomorrow, which I don't think is that far away, as 5 to 10 years, the job requirements will change more into more analysis and interpretation of information. That's one.
Yeah, I think that actually makes sense as you're talking about it. I could see where you wouldn't have someone maybe doing the sort of just the grunt work, the basic analysis, but they could get experience by watching, AI manage that. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops. Well, tell us a little bit more about.
Sorry to interrupt you. I was just gonna say that, yeah, you still need somebody that will input data or input a requirement, a request to perform something on the AI. And the AI, this will evolve as well. So who it's inputting that information that you require is also key. So how do you input the request or the task you're asking the AI to perform? That will definitely needs to be very specific, and somebody that has been, let's say, trained to do that. And you could have entry level people that is being trained on universities or technical degrees to actually know how to treat AI so that they can get the right outcome. So
Yeah, it's just going to be different. I think you're going to still need people, but they will be doing different things. So it will be interesting to see how it plays out. So tell us more about the your site in Portugal, the new Greenfield site. What makes it unique, if anything, and what are the biggest priorities you have as you're bringing it online?
I mean, it's a huge project. We're talking about 57,000 square meters of usable, let's say, construction. A big portion of that is, of course, offices and then warehouse, but we also have a big size for production. And what we are betting on is to build a high volume manufacturing site that can tackle growth in the markets that we are present today in Europe and also in other regions as well. So I think that the it's quite exciting that we're doing that. And for me, I'm Costa Rican and travel around a little bit with Coloplast, and now also looking at this from another point of view, which we have built similar sites in other places, and now do it here, which has a different culture and so on. So that's also quite exciting because then you need to. I think it enriches how we do things when you have different cultures mixed together, trying to do something new. So I think it's quite a journey for us up ahead. We're still on the process, so have not started yet. Let's say production as such. So we're on the preparation phase.
Yeah, definitely. I agree completely. Having those different viewpoints stimulates a lot of different ideas and helps you arrive at better decisions. So, for that plan, and you've been involved with this before and you're anticipating growth. So, obviously, the production facility, in an operations science angle with my operations science glasses on, when you're talking about building the plant, you're talking about how much capacity you're going to install. And obviously, the thing with committing to a plant is you are committing a lot of money and resources to a very large chunk of capacity. But it sounds like from what you're saying that the demand, you're building it to accommodate growth. So you're not going to start the production running at maximum capacity to begin with. How do you manage that your capacity in terms of when you're starting out small and you want to grow big? Are you not installing as many machines to begin with, even though you have a factory floor where you could install more? or are you installing all the machines to meet the demand you anticipate and just not running them? How are you managing that growth?
It's a great question, I think. And what we do is that we are actually transferring some production from another of our sites to start with. And we are also building the site for one of our largest growth platforms that we have in the catheter market. So it's based on chunks of period. So this transfer, it's taking about 3 years actually to happen. And in the meanwhile, you still have more growth, so you have more machines coming in at some point. So it's built as such that we, first of all, we serve the market properly, because one of our Coloplast mission is that we serve people with intimate healthcare needs. And to do this properly, we need to have the right capacity. And of course, I think we discussed this in our first conversation about how do you balance capacity needs versus your demand. And we also discussed about the long lead time to build machines, for example. And I would say that in a high growing market in high EBIT as well, you would like to err more on the higher capacity than not, right? Because then at the end you enough for the assets with your sales and of course servicing the users better.
Yeah, that's a trade-off. I mean, in that particular market, I mean, a catheter, if you think about it, that type of medical product production that I'm familiar with, the raw materials are not particularly expensive, right? And so, you're basically paying for all of the intellectual property that's gone into it. So in that particular case, having the extra capacity makes complete sense. There might be some other type of industries where capacity is really expensive, and so you have to be careful about that. You might be willing to balance a longer lead time to the customer against having a little bit less capacity. But it sounds like in your case, you guys are committed to making sure that you get the products to market as quickly as possible and the cost structure works so that you can do that and hold extra capacity. And you've got a great fallback with having flexible capacity with your other plants, right? And they can pick up some of the demand.
I think one of the drivers that we have and for industries that are servicing people with some needs, it's making their life easier, right? So I think that value and that also turns the strategy in its purpose. So what I mean is that if your purpose is that if you have a user that needs a catheter, right, to live a normal life, let's say, then you would not to ever have any disruption on the market, right? So I think that sets the stage of how we do the transfers, but also Coloplast grows every year between 6 and 8%. So we've been doing this for many years already. So we know about growth and we know about building new capacity. So I think that's but if you ask me, is there a secret formula to how to establish the capacity? I think it's a case to case basis and also based on what you're actually transferring and what are the needed need capacity, what is your need square meters that you actually will need to put on the new manufacturing side. And also as we grow, sometimes we have the lack of space in one of the sites, and then we need to transfer machines out so that we can install new machines also in those other sites. So it's a blend of activities to be able to do this properly.
Yeah, it's a complex ballet indeed. Do you have parallel capacity with other factories to support demand?
No, in general, we don't. Mostly our approach is to specialize the production by sites. Of course, in the latest, with COVID, we also saw some needs to have parallel production, but at this point, we're maintaining our same strategy, which is specialized in our, for depending on which product we're talking about, that then the manufacturing side is based on that region. But for sure, Europe is one of our largest markets, and that's where why we're establishing here.
Okay, a little bit different tangent to that, and I've seen this before. There's a lot of different, for instance, labeling requirements for different countries in Europe. And so I think you mentioned that you do postponement in Hungary. Explain a little bit about that, how that strategy works for you.
And so postponement is not a new concept. Let's say that what we try to do is postpone as much as possible the creation of a finished good that then it will serve a specific market. So of course, when we talk about medical devices, you have different regulations in different countries with different needs of let's say information for use or info cards that you actually need to have in that country. And actually in some products the difference will be some information for use inside the retail box, as we call. And when you have a vast majority, or let's say a high complexity set of items, now you said 600 items, that's what we'll start producing in Portugal. But then of course the variety of finished goods that we have in the company, it's greater than that. And being able to postpone as much as possible before converting that to the real finished good going to a specific market allows to have some flexibility in terms of inventory, because then when you have inventory that can serve to different countries, what you are doing is basically just consolidating inventory that can later be transferred to any of those countries without the need of creating small pieces. So basically, let's call it as for volatility on the demand, what we do is to postpone, and then we serve the market faster, because then the process for, let's say, changing from the general box that we have to a specific market, it's really fast, and we can serve the market at a high speed. Whereas if we need to do that from the early stages in production, then we are seeing that we will need to stock more items for those small markets that we have and that are more volatile.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's a great strategy. You're right. It's not new, but it is very effective to keep the requirements for overall inventory down. So, looking across your experience, what are some of the lessons you've learned about leading people? I always like to ask my guests about their approach to leading people effectively in your experience.
Thanks. When you asked about the major challenges that we can face, I was also tempted to say, that this is how do you lead people, and because that's all about what we do, right? So I would say that it has evolved, at least for me personally, throughout the years has evolved. At the beginning, as it is normal in many companies, I would say most, you are a specialist doing a job, an engineer doing a job, and then you develop some skills, and then you get into a manager job. You are not trained necessarily on how to deal with people and how to lead people. That's a switch that companies in general are not great at doing. And so at the beginning was more specialist, the type of job where okay, I as a leader need to be the know-it-all person and the go-to for my team. And but that then you become sometimes also a roadblock if you do that, because then you are providing the answers and you are not allowing for let's say diversity of different ideas and so on. So I think what I have learned now throughout the years is also to a little bit back and ask questions. And my leadership style is more about asking people, what do you think? What would you do in that case? Why would you do it this way? What is our other options? So these what if are questions that will enhance people also to start thinking, but are never taking away the responsibility from them, right? So I think that's a clear point. And I would say also a purpose of a company, it's to allow people to grow, not only professionally but personally. And if you as a boss help somebody with a little thing to grow personally, and maybe take away one of the blind spots that the person has, I think that's a big gain. And I also think I live for those small moments that we can help somebody to grow.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we in our book that's coming out, Operation Science Applied, we've got a chapter about people, and that's one of the things. There's something called self-determination theory, and it explores what motivates people. And one of those things is autonomy, being able to make decisions on their own and also to learn new things and be challenged. So that sounds awesome. That sounds like you've developed a pretty good strategy for dealing with people.
I look forward to hear about that part of operation science.
Applied? Oh, the book. Yes. Well, it's one of those things that it's always almost done, but literally it is at the publisher. It's been through the copy editor, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, it'll be out in a month or so. So we'll see. We will definitely.
Yeah, it's great to hear. Yeah, I also had the opportunity to listen to one of the podcasts that you had about. I think it's the art of learning from mistakes. That's the name of the podcast. Yes, and I enjoyed pretty much the concept about how to make people feel safe making mistakes. Right? So how do you create that environment? I think that's also a key part of leadership. How to make sure that people can come to work and be themselves. I think that's when you allow that to happen, then you allow people to express openly, and then you are enhancing different point of views, and of course innovation can happen from that.
Absolutely. Yeah, Mark's done a great job with that. That he calls that psychological safety, establishing psychological safety in the workplace, and definitely, it really changes the productivity that you get from people. All right. So when it comes to product launches, let's go back to products. How do you balance your demand forecast? We've talked that a little. It's basically this growth question with the reality that sometimes you don't know what demand you're going to get. Or is it in your case? You mentioned that you guys were growing 6 to 8% per year. Is your growth pretty predictable? How does that work with new products?
Well, with new products is it's more an art than a science, I would say, and it involves, because there's no statistics generated so far, so there's a lot more collaboration throughout the organization to define what is what are we going to bet at. But what I would mention first of all is that launching a new product, and of course depends on the scale, and it depends on the company, the size, and the market reach that you actually want to get. But I would say in general, there's a lot of collaboration between sales, marketing, operations, and if you have a separate organization for product innovation as well, define, okay, what is the best guess? Can we compare a product that we're going to launch with a current existing portfolio that we have, and can we assume some of the, let's say, statistics, because throughout the years you keep launching, right? So you have historical data of how you are launching and how that launch goes, and if you have a difference adherence or pick up on different markets, that will help you also to, let's say, if let's in Austria you have a very high adoption from the beginning, historically, for different launches, then you can also use that information to make the assumptions for those markets. So I think that collaboration in itself, it's important. But I would say then somebody will need to put the bet on the table and say this is what we're going to do, because then if you need to go backwards and define what is the operation strategy you are going to follow, what is the supply chain strategy you are going to follow, and get ready for that, right? So that might mean that you need to buy machines, for example, and machines, depending on the size, you can have machines that are 8 months to 2 years, depending on the magnitude. So you need to plan that quite ahead. But I also think that it's important doing a handshake between operations and sales organization on saying, okay, we're going to this is our bet, it's together, this is a team, and that's where we're going to pursue. The demand might be higher than we expected, and of course the lead time to reach out that demand later will be longer, right? So that's also why you also will not plan with a short capacity or limited capacity. You want to play with a buffer as well, and when you define how many machines and how much production you can have. So it's more an art, and it's project that you need to treat as. But yeah, you can benefit definitely from historical data that you have had in the past. So it's yeah, it's quite tricky. But I guess as if if you iterate this many times, then you get a hold of the main variables that will affect the demand.
Pretty predictable. Well, I tell you, you are singing the Operation Science song. One of the things we talk about is, and really stress, is that business strategy, what your products, your markets, your customers, services are going to be, should drive operation strategy. But it's not a one-way street. As you've mentioned, the sales guys will say, we want to sell all this stuff. And the operations guys will say, well, okay, we need more equipment. And then the finance guys say, well, we don't have the money to buy more equipment. Or they'll say, sure, we'll buy the equipment. But it's an iterative process where, as long as you are doing the handshake, as you mentioned, you can be quite predictable about the results you're going to get, even though you might have a lot of variability. So it's really great to hear you describe that, because that is the way to manage it indeed. So along those lines, have you had situations where that didn't work out? Everybody always likes to hear about.
I was thinking about that and smiling to myself. It's not in Coloplast. It's in a previous company that I will not name. But then I that was the definitely, there was some learnings for me, but that was the wrong way to do that. So that was maybe 2008 ish, around that time, and there was these sales and marketing and operations meetup, and we said marketing was with some and sales was with some pressure to sell more, and they said, guys, we can sell more if operations can produce, and operations say, I can produce if you ask me to do that, right? So we will prepare for that, and there was this yes, we can sell it everything and so on, and at the end, operations delivered the production, but sales didn't deliver the selling part, and of course, we were stuck with inventory back then, which took a few years to get rid of. So I think that is very clear that you need to be really careful on where you're putting your bet, because operations in general, we're focused, we're the, let's say, squared, and we go and execute a plan, but sales is a different world. So if you don't have a good handle of how you can actually sell more, I think that's when it becomes tricky, and perhaps you will have unnecessary, let's say, yeah, unnecessary problems.
But in that situation, so I mean, one of the another option is to, well, sales says we can sell more, but you don't have to make everything they say they're going to sell immediately. It sounds like that's what happened in that case. Is that right?
Yeah, to some degree, because the intention back then was run it was back when I was living in Costa Rica, so it was a Central America, let's say, type of strategy, and the intention was to roll out a marketing campaign to sell more. So if you are running television ads, radio ads, and so on, and the demand picks up, then of course you want to be ready to do that. So that was this first part that you needed to be ready with. So otherwise, you kill the campaign when not even born. So yeah, but it was a learning on how to not do it. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's those things are good to learn. Unfortunately, they often happen. Real time, which is when you don't want them to happen. But hopefully, people listening to the podcast won't make that mistake. So we'll see. All right. So you guys, you mentioned when we talked earlier, getting ready for the show, that you do global, or Coloplast does global supply chain planning in Denmark. How does that play into your day-to-day operations?
So the setup that we have is as you say, a global structure that is based out of Denmark. So Coloplast is a Danish company, and what we have is an area where that is dictating inventory for finished goods levels, right? So that they analyzing what are what is the right point to define stocks at each of the markets, and then what it drives is the execution differently. So if we change stock levels for some items, then we need to execute against that. And what we do is have different windows, different time windows of what is the site responsibility, what is the global supply chain responsibility in terms of the planning window. For us, being a new site and having a ramp up, then we have a longer window to look at, because then we can be ready to hire more people, right? So if we cannot be sitting here and say in 3 months we need to hire 50 more people for this, we need to be ready way in advance. So I think that's that is a key portion.
So is that a situation where the global supply chain planning group is talking with the plant daily or weekly, or how often does that communication go on?
Yeah, I think it's on a monthly basis. There's some meetups. So let's say there's a cadence on how to relate with this, and there's a monthly, let's say, outlook to review what is the that's not for us because we're not starting the production, but on mature sites that's the setup where every month we meet up and check what is the capacity looking out for the next 2 years. If there's any roadblocks, if there's any issues with inventory, the suppliers come and go, materials come and go. So you have also some other variables that gets into play here. And of course there's a touch points on service levels that we have. So this it's more at that level on a monthly basis as well, and of course on a weekly basis from the site, from the production side itself.
Okay, that sounds like a pretty well developed. I would call, some people call it SIOP, sales and inventory and operations planning, or just sales and operations planning. But it sounds like you have a pretty mature process in that regard.
Yeah, I think so. I think and it's key as well. And but if you go back also to how AI will affect this, it's also something that, we keep thinking about how to incorporate this. And not something that we have in plan, is only my personal view, but if you have 30-40 planners across the globe, right? So okay, how do you can you centralize them? Can you look AI to do a portion of that job when somebody needs to schedule, right? So can you give the AI sequencing instructions, and what is the, let's say, trade-offs between switching back and forth from product to product? And I think that can be automated as well. So in my view, if there are many companies that probably operates as same as we are doing, but this will be a key figure later on how to optimize and leverage that engine.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. That's one of my predictions for AI. As you mentioned, anytime you put a planner in the supply chain, you're going to get additional variability because they're gonna try and basically localize, optimize locally. And I think one of the big advantages of AI is it's going to be able to look across supply chains and really just dampen a lot of that the bullwhip effect that's caused by each individual planner kind of making their own decisions. And they're just trying to do a good job, but they don't see and they can't see the whole process. And I think that's a very definite advantage that AI will bring. Doesn't mean that you won't need planners, but they'll take out a lot of the variability caused by planning, because there's a lot of self-induced variability that companies have just because different people are making different planning decisions and they don't see the whole picture. It'll be interesting to see how that works out.
I agree. I think it's just a different profile that is needed then to analyze the information that is being provided, right, and make a decision. I was, one of the examples that I have from previous jobs also is that you always have a material planner that is, this is the guy that is, up to the data and knows everything well and, wants to be exact. But then you have somebody that prefers to have a little bit more buffer. So this what you're saying about variability and how does this impact also inventory at all? It's also driven by personal preferences and experiences that comes from the past. And AI will not have that preference from the past. We'll have a set of instructions on how do we want to do that. And so I think that's one of the key benefits. But Yeah, we were talking about how we are doing in Coloplast as a mature, let's say, supply chain, and I think it is, but I think at some point all supply chains will be evolving based on technology and so on. So.
All right, so let's switch gears a little bit here and talk about Santiago Camacho, the man. Where did you grow up? What was your family life? You have brothers and sisters. What led you to where you are today, working in supply chain?
Well, first, thanks for the question. I was born and raised in San Jose, Costa Rica, and so my childhood was playing soccer in Costa Rica. Costa Ricans, we love soccer. We are not so good at it, as you can see in results from the World Cup, but we still like it.
The U.S. we're not so good. Well, the men are not so good at it either. But okay.
Women are quite good, I would say. Yeah. And I was born in with my parents, and I have a sister that is a year younger and a brother that is 9 years younger. So it was just I would say a normal childhood living on. I went into studying industrial engineering. Initially, I was going to go for computer sciences, but then I really had a couple of courses, introductory courses to industrial engineering. It was methods and studies and methods. I don't know if that's how you call it in English, but it's all about measuring timings and so on. And then I had an introduction to quality control, and was not deep into the statistical part yet, but it was just introductory, and I just got engaged to the concept, so like it really well. So from there, that was my bachelor degree, and since then my first job was as a buyer, and from there just keep evolving into the supply chain. I did have a few years on process improvement with Six Sigma, let's say, a portfolio, and then I just went directly to SNOP and supply chain. So that's from a professional part. That's a little bit of the background. I do have three kids and my wife, and we've been moving around quite a bit with Coloplast, which is also great that companies are still, some companies will allow this rotation from different countries, because that's creates you a wide, let's say, spectrum, not only from the process, not only from the company, but also culturally. I think that's a important part to it, and expand that. And so yeah, that's about me. Crazy about road cycling, by the way. And yeah, yes.
Well, Portugal's got supposed to actually. I've got a friend who's a same thing. He's crazy about road cycling, and he's going to Portugal for some long ride. I don't know. Is there some famous place that you go for road cycling in Portugal?
Well, I mean, Portugal is famous for the Douro Valley, because we have this Douro River that basically crosses from Portugal into Spain. So you have also Duero in Spain, which produces a lot of wines, and Douro is the same. But there's a road that goes, basically to the side of the river, and you can cycle that one. I think it might be 280 kilometers or something around that. So you can cycle, and it's quite beautiful. So maybe it's that one.
Yeah, yeah, it might be. I'll have to ask him about that. So, how do you balance? You've got your kids and your wife. You're moving all over the world, and I tell you, that's a great experience for a family because you learn to be independent and adapt to a lot of change. But how do you balance your role at work with your personal life at home with your family?
That's a tricky question. If you find the formula, let me know, because I'm still searching for it. I think my approach to this is, you find the time to be present when you're present, and when you need to be fully into work, you are fully into work, and where you're home, you are home. So that's my approach. Sometimes it's less time at home, more time traveling, but then I try to compensate that. So on the day to day, I would not say okay, there's a balance as such. Is a balancing act, I would say, that is okay, being there when you are supposed to be there. So yeah. But if things good formula, let me know.
Yeah, no, that's well, I think you pretty much hit the secret. There's always different demands, and expecting a set pattern, particularly when your kids are young, it's hard to do. But it is definitely important to be fully present when you're with them. I think that's great advice for anybody. That's a pretty good secret in and of itself. All right. Well, listen, Santiago, it's been a great conversation. Really enjoyed hearing your insights. I think you've got a lot of good experience that listeners will appreciate. And I look forward to continuing the conversation in the future.
Edward, thanks for having me, and thanks for the opportunity to be in on the podcast. I hope that somebody will hear and get some learnings and or inspiration. So if we do that, I think that's already a gain. So thanks for the time.
That was my pleasure. Thanks.
All right, bye.
Bye.
The Operation Science podcast requires more than a conversation. It takes action, research, and collective wisdom. If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your insights. Join the conversation and help us shape the future together. Join the Operation Science Institute at opscience.org. We'll be back with more stories, strategies, and real-world solutions that are making a difference for everyone. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, rate, write a review, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too. Thanks for listening, and see you on the next episode. The views expressed by our guests are their own and do not represent their company's views unless specifically stated as such.